Hello YouTube, welcome to our third video here on our YouTube channel, and this is going to be the second Bitcoin update. But instead of just looking at Bitcoin, and we did touch on Ethereum a little bit, we will be covering a lot of the altcoins as well, just looking at the bigger time frames, the weekly, the daily, stuff like that. There has been a ton of movement in the market, and we want to cover not just the main pair, Bitcoin paired with USD, but we're also wanting to look at the other altcoins paired with US Tether as well. Before I really start into this video and get into the TA, I just want to say, because there's been so much volatility and I know a lot of people have been burned, you always have to A, set stop losses, and B, adhere to them, because it's easy to set a stop loss and then think that your bias is right and just cancel the stop loss thinking that it's going to go your way, and you want to give the price a little bit more room. But I have heard of stories recently of people thinking that a certain support is going to be a bottom, and then when it breaks they just assume that it is a wick down and they're not going to sell, and then they get burned holding a very bad loser. So just want to reiterate that stop losses are key. Manage your risk, and especially when it comes down to these very volatile down moves, you don't want to be catching a falling knife. You want to be patient, you want to wait for the opportunity and look on this smaller time frame, see if it's making higher highs and higher lows, see if the momentum is shifting, see if it's breaking resistances and holding supports. If your boxes aren't checking off that is going in an uptrend, you shouldn't be longing, right? If there is a small opportunity, like if there's an ascending triangle and you think it's a good opportunity for a potential very bottom of a long, yeah, you could put a smaller position in, don't put your full 2% of your risk on, but you can do that. But just blatantly having a buy position just because you think it's going to be a support is not enough validation. It's not enough confirmation. You have to have confirmation before you enter. So just wanted to touch on that before we get into the TA. And first off, let's do a Bitcoin analysis, because that obviously is the market leader, and then we will go into the altcoins later. So let's first look at the daily chart of BTC. Looks a little bit messy, not really. Hopefully it's not for you, but I did draw in our key levels of demand here. And let's jump to the weekly so we can identify where our key levels of demand are. So let's just take this off right now and use our arrow here to identify where our zones of demand are. So after that massive dump, where we're looking is going to be the low of the structure right here. This structure was the massive triangle that happened in 2018. We saw that 6K mark, around 6K, 58, 6K-ish around here, has been the low for that structure for quite some time. So if we do see the price continue to drop, I think that is going to be the key level of support. Now, what I also see is a massive potential head and shoulders if this actually fulfills. So if this goes all the way to 6K, what do we see? We see a reverse head and shoulders, right? We see a push to the upside, and then this is the first shoulder, where it's the left shoulder. This is going to be the top, and this is going to be the potential breakout point, except we can draw a trend line here. And then we see a head right here, and then this is the second shoulder created right here. So if we actually draw this in, so what we're going to do is just close all this, remove all drawing tools, and let's just draw in our reverse head and shoulders here. And then so for the head and shoulders, this would be the neckline right here, and then this descending zone would be the breakout area. So this is what we're looking for the potential reverse head and shoulders pattern. If it actually does come to fruition, we would need to see the price continue to fall towards this area right here, $57, $5,800, right around there. We would need to see the price hold this zone, and then once we see the price hold and start to trend up on the smaller time frames, we see higher highs and higher lows, start to see break resistances, hold supports. Once we see that form, we can then look to potentially look to long here with a solid risk reward. So this is how we would play this. If we do see the break here, this would be the entry, and we would have a very, very wide stop loss, because this zone is going to be a very sensitive zone, very volatile. I don't want to get wicked out just on a small little wick down and then get pushed right back up, missing the whole move. So in these areas where there's going to be high sensitivity zones, like here, the 6K area, you want to really give more room than the average trade because there's going to be more volatility, there's going to be more volume coming into the market during this time. So you really want to make sure that you're not going to get stopped out. You might want to lower your position size a little bit and increase the room on your stop loss so you are giving more room for the market to move. The cryptocurrency market is a very volatile market, and the last thing that you want to do is have an entrance here, get a tiny wick to stop you out, and then you see a massive move to the upside that you're not in because you got wicked out. So that's something that you don't want to happen, and you want to give enough room that you're basically insured if the price does come back down a little bit. So that is the long-term look of BTC. If the price comes all the way back down here, this is the overall chart pattern I am looking at. And then also, we have been talking about BLX on the Discord, and we will go over it within this video as well. We did go over it within previous videos on the Discord, but as this video is going to be on our new YouTube channel, we will cover the chart of BLX as well. So this is BLX. This is the longest chart of BTC we have. We can see that it started back in July of 2010, and then we have the price action of the entire time frame in between. So that is a lot of information for us that we can use for our important technical analysis when identifying a potential reversal for our trade. So the reason we're on this chart is I want to show you a key zone of confluence that we could be looking at for a potential buy zone just from using two key areas. We have a curved support right here holding the price from making higher lows. We can draw that in right now. We'll be using a curved zone, which is going to be right here. I know it is a bit of a dynamic support. It's not as precise as a straight line, but bear with me. If it's held this point onwards and it's at anchor points all throughout the historic price action, we can assume that there's going to be some level of buy pressure here as well. So let's make this line all precise by zooming in here and really refining the touch points. So let's get it a little bit more precise, just like that. And then we see nice touch points all along here. And then we'll put that right to the $35, $34-ish $100 zone right there. And now it looks pretty darn precise. So now we can use this line to actually risk off of when we're doing our TA. And just to let you know, the BLX chart is a little bit delayed. So this is not the actual price. We did break this zone here. So if we just switch back to Gemini, for example, we did break this zone, although on BLX it's a little bit delayed. So we are using BLX only for our long-term macro look. We're not using it to actually execute. So this is the zone of confluence that we were talking about a little bit earlier. So if we go to our rectangle right here and then draw in our key level of support, we see that right here is going to be the key level of confluence where we have the curved ascending support creating the higher lows in line with our horizontal zone of support, which is going to be a demand for buyers to be entering around here. So for me, that is going to be a key level for buyers to be entering. So this is the head and shoulders that I see right here. We see a push right here, pullback, and then we did get our consolidation into our final leg down, breaking the 6K support. Now this is going to be, for me, the breakout zone, which is going to be around the 12K mark right around here. We got a push creating our first, this is our left shoulder. And then we're going to have our right shoulder right here. So then the price came right back up to our breakout point, which is going to be the 12K zone right around here. And then we are currently seeing the price now reject that breakout zone, come back to form our right shoulder. Now, what I'm expecting is if the price does come back to retest our right shoulder, which is going to be around the 6K zone, we're going to see a sharp climb back up to the breakout zone, which is going to be 12K. And then from there, we will actually break up to the upside and then commence the bull run. So that is, for me, the structure of how the macro chart does look. We do see that we could be in this consolidation for a little while longer while seeing some downside potential to around the 6K zone. But that is how the price action looks to me right now. We're still in a little bit of a bearish momentum, still driving the price towards the 6K zone. But for me, I think that's where we're going to see a lot of bulls start to come in and buy up the price, is around that 6K zone right around here. And then let's just zoom out for a little bit, deleting these to see on the bigger time frames if this is a possibility. So we can see kind of in this section right here, we saw the price slow down, continue. the bearish momentum, and then we saw an initial push up, but I think we're kind of around here where we did see the initial push up. There is some confidence from the bulls thinking that we will have another bullish push, but we are still in that consolidation phase and we are not going to get out of it until we break our key level of resistance, which is going to be around 12K, which is right around here. So now that we have seen the macro picture of BTC and where my thoughts are on the price action anyways, let's look on the smaller time frames here of the price action of BTC and then see where we could go from where we are and see if we could potentially identify another continuation pattern to take us to the 6K zone. So we are now on the 4-hour chart of BTC, and just looking at it from the bigger picture, we can see that yes, it has a massive fall, but we are going to focus just kind of on this price action that happened recently. So why did we hold? Well, the main reason why we held is for two reasons. The first one was we never broke the descending trend line here, so we had no signal to sell. If we don't break a trend line, we're still holding it and we're still using it as a resistance, so we don't need to really sell. That's the first reason. Two, we see a lot of wicks protruding out of the highs here, but we are not seeing a hold, meaning that there's a lot of sell pressure pushing the price right back down. So for me, this is, in terms of the price action, bearish, as well as the market structure is bearish as well. Now we did buy back at the lows around here, so we did miss this little section here, but from 9K drop, you cannot complain about that massive move. So from here, what is going to happen? Well, for me personally, it looks like it's very, very oversold. I do still think that we will get momentum to the downside, but I do think we will need some sort of correction, some sort of breath from the market, and that would mean a move back to the upside. Now, I am out of this position. I'm not short anymore. I am looking to re-enter short, but for now, I'm going to patiently wait. We captured a phenomenal move, and we're going to let the price action figure itself out and try to create a good pattern for us to enter again for the short side. So let's look at what could happen here. We do see a massive push. So this was pretty healthy here, where we saw breaking of supports, retesting of resistances, breaking of supports, retesting of resistances. But right here, we saw an absolute slam, no validation of a new resistance, and then a slam again. So what I'm expecting is some level of a pullback to potentially maybe either hit the 75 zone around here, or at least the 78 zone, one of these two for a retest. So that's going to be the first potential for me that the price is going to have. So we're going to either retest here or retest here, because we need some level of a pullback, in my opinion, in order for it to be a healthy and trending market to the downside. Looking at the buy volume, if we look on the first break after the $7,800 zone, we don't see a whole lot of buy volume coming in. But once we saw the second crack and the break of the $7,500 zone, we saw a significant amount of buy volume. So in a perfect world for me, what would I like to see? What I would like to see is for the price to come, and it would be nice if it consolidated slowly up to around our confluence zone, which is right around here. So why is it a confluence zone? Well, we have two key areas that we're looking for sell pressure in this area. The first one is going to be the descending trend line right here. That's been respected multiple times. Look how well the price is trending down, bouncing off the resistance. That's going to be our first level of sell pressure. The second level of sell pressure is the previous support, which was right here, the $7,800 zone, key market structure right here. Because it was a previous support, we can safely assume old supports equal new resistances. It's going to be another level of sell pressure right here. So we have double confirmation that there's going to be sell pressure around here. So then for us, it's going to give us more confidence and a higher probability of being right. So for us, this is how we're going to play it. We're going to be very patient right now, not really going to jump into trades because the market just had a massive move. What do we need after that? We need some level of consolidation for the market to breathe. We don't like trading consolidations. We like to trade impulse and corrective moves that have power behind them. So we're going to wait patiently, not really going to do anything, but this is the plan for us. We will want to see the price continue upwards around here. We want to see on the smaller time frames the creation of lower lows and lower highs, and once we see that, we will wait for a pullback to create a lower high. We'll enter, and then we'll keep on continuing with the trend to the downside. So we're not going to do anything yet. we're just going to patiently wait for BTC, but that is how we're going to look at it. That is the plan for us, and if it doesn't happen, if we see the price not really pull back up and continue downwards, that's all right. We're not going to be able to capture the short on BTC, but we will look at other alts for potential short opportunities. Not a whole lot more to talk about for BTC. We could go over our trade, but I don't think you just want to go over how much money we made or how much profits we captured or anything. But basically, we shorted from the 9K zone right around here, and then we took off our profits around here. We did miss this, no shame, not a problem. We captured more than what we came here for, and we're very happy with our trade. So gonna wait it out, not going to jump in too early, not going to get emotional, just going to play the charts, play what we see, and not take any trades if we don't see them. So now that we are completed with Bitcoin, we can now go to an altcoin. So let's now move to XRP. So this is paired with US Tether. This is on the Binance account, so we don't have the data for the Bitfinex chart, which is, I believe here, there's some more data, but we're just going to use with what we have on the Binance chart. So this is going to be the daily chart, and we see that we have hit, again, the lowest point on this chart. So for all alts, it does depend on what BTC is doing. An alt could have the best looking chart. It could be looking like it has the most bullish pattern that you've seen in months. And if Bitcoin dumps, there's a very, very high chance that that altcoin you're looking at will fall as well. So we always have to keep in mind the market leader and really, really understand which way Bitcoin's moving, because then you can play the sympathy play on whatever alt you're trading. And that's how we like to do it, is we like to look at which way Bitcoin's going, which would then will create the market sentiment, and then we will use that market sentiment to play with the other alts in order to create a sympathy play, which is just basically using the momentum of the market to create confidence in the trade that you're going to take. So let's now move to XRP here. So we have identified our key levels of supply and demand on the bigger time frames, and let's now continue to the smaller time frames, because there's not a whole lot to talk about for the price action of XRP on the bigger time frames. We see that we tried to break the zone of 31 cents around here, but this is going to be the key level. So we see that initially it was around here where we saw the buyers just did not let the price pass this zone. And as always, old supports become new resistances. So if we do draw this a little bit bigger and incorporate kind of the whole scope of that support there, we can see that previous support equals new resistance. We saw the buyers push it up, keep the price above the 30-cent zone, which is around here, 29, 30-cent zone-ish around here. And then after we saw the final push up, and then we saw the break below the zone. Look what happened here. We saw a break below the zone with a massive red candle. What did we need in order to validate the zone? We need a retest. So this was that retest. Perfect entry opportunity here. We see a very clear zone where buyers are entering, and then we are going to have a lot of sellers enter that same zone when we break past for a retest. So this is exactly what happened, and then we got a nice downtrend to hold our low. This was that nice triangle that formed like this, and then we got a nice retest right there before pushing up into the highs of the resistance. So we pushed back at the higher resistance twice now, so we have a validation that this is a key level of resistance for us. And then we have our little low here, which is going to be just like this. So we are, right now for me, we're trending in a sideways market, and we are at the bottom of our lows, so we could start to see the price trend back up. Obviously, it does depend on Bitcoin. Like I said, with BTC, we could start to see the trend come back up, trying to retest maybe the 7,800 zone, somewhere around there. So I wouldn't be surprised if this price does come back to try to retest the resistance here, because we saw a massive fall, and I think we're going to get some level of a pullback before seeing the next leg down if we do see the pushback down. But that's just my opinion of XRP. So looking at the smaller time frames from the daily, we can actually see a nice descending trend line here that we can use to potentially use for an entry for our long position if we do decide to take it. Let's break that down from the daily onto the 4-hour. So I will just leave these zones here, and this can be red because this is a massive zone for sellers. So we can see that there is clear lower highs right here, and it's a very healthy downtrend, breaking supports, holding resistances, and it's looking pretty solid. So let's continue on with our analysis. So this is that descending zone that I was talking about. we see a clear downtrend with the highs connecting right there. And then what we're looking for is if the price does come back to this zone, if we see a break, it would be a pretty good entry to potentially have a take profit around the sell zone here. So this is what I'm looking at. If we get our little long position right here, if we do see the price continue all the way up here, we could see the price bounce up here, maybe see a bit of a retest to validate this demand zone, and then we would look to potentially long here with our stop loss below right here, and then our take profit will be around the resistance right there. So that could be a potential trade if it actually does come to fruition. We will need some stuff to happen before we actually enter, but that is how I would play the trade. And then once we see the price trending up a little bit, we could increase our stop loss, so we're not really getting a under 3 risk reward. We're at around 2.25, sorry, which is not great, but it's not bad. We could have a risk that's a little bit higher, just encompassing the demand zone, and that would create a bit of a better risk reward, but that's just how I'm looking at the price action right now. We will need to see, obviously, the price start to hold this zone and then come back up before we even think about entering. And there's a lot of things that need to happen before we even want to click the buy button. But it's just an idea that could come into fruition if the stars align and if things are going to happen the way that I think they're going to happen. So it's just on the sidelines for now. It's a trade that could play out if some things are aligning. So not really going to talk about XRP too much anymore because we don't really have a whole lot to do. And another entry could be a potential short if we do see the price come back to this zone around here. We see that used as a previous resistance, then support. We can see that right here, previous resistance, new support, right? And then if we get a pullback to this zone, that could be a level of confluence because we see the descending zone be used as a resistance as well as the previous support and previous resistance and as also a previous support here be used as a new resistance. We know that this is a level of supply here, but I think that shorting here, there's not a whole lot of a significant risk reward because the chance of it breaking the low here is a lot less than just bouncing up into the range bound trend that I think that we're going to have. So there's some possibilities here, and that could be an outcome that could be fruitful if you do short here, if the trend is still downwards, but I'm not really going to play on it right now. I'm going to just wait, be patient, and let the price action tell me what to do. So that is XRP. Not going to go too into it now, and then the next one is going to be BNB. So we were looking at a potential short here as well. We will get into the bigger time frames and do our top-down analysis. I just want to show you how perfect this entry possibly was. We were very exposed to the downside and I didn't want to overexpose myself, so I didn't put on more shorts that I saw. It's just a part of the method that I personally like to use where I'm not taking every single trade I think is a good thing. You have to understand the risk against your total portfolio in the case of the trades not going your way if you are taking trades in the same direction. So if you're hedging, take as many trades as you want. Theoretically, you shouldn't be over leveraged or overexposed in one direction for another because you are well hedged. But if you are taking a lot of longs or a lot of shorts at once, you really want to understand how much you could lose if the trade doesn't go your way. And all of them, not just the single trade, right? So if you're taking 3 trades all short and then Bitcoin decides to pump, thus creating more buy pressure for all the other alts, you could lose all 3 trades. And if you're risking 2% of your total account on every single trade, if you're trading 3 trades, that's 6% of your total account gone. And that to me is something that I don't like to have happen. So if I'm taking multiple trades, I am reducing my risk the more trades I take. So then in accumulated value, I'm not risking that much. So if I take 3 trades, yeah, I might have a risk that is far greater than 2% on my total portfolio, but it's not going to be, 5%, 6%, 10%, anything like that, right? So I'm keeping it under the 2% risk rule, if not just a little bit higher if it's a really, really prime opportunity. But really that 2% rule is there for safety and not to limit us in any way. It may seem like it's limiting, but as a trader, you will have drawdowns. You will have times where you lose 3, 4, 5, 7 times in a row, like in some cases, right? So you really need to make sure that your losses aren't going to demolish your account if you have consecutive losses, maybe 2, 3 times in a row. So let's just quickly look at this, and then we will get into these bigger time frames here. So this is that trend that we were talking about, that trend line. So we got a test of that trend. This is the hour chart. So we got a test of the trend line. We tried to get the bulls to push up, could not. We got a very solid break. So even on the 4 hour, we saw the price break the trend line. What did we need after? We needed a validation of a new resistance. What happened? We got a break of a support, validation of a new resistance, really a picture perfect trade. And then we saw a massive move down with very, very little drawdown when we entered, or when we theoretically should have entered, with the signals that the price gave us. So this, for me, is a picture perfect setup. I did not take it, obviously. I said that before because I was very exposed to the short side, which I'm very happy about because we did well. But you're not going to take every single trade that you think is an amazing opportunity unless you are all right with overexposing yourself. But for us, that was just something that we spectated and thought, wow, I can't believe that just happened. That's phenomenal. And it's always good to, even if you're not in a trade, but just to really look at it. And a lot of people can't have any emotional attachment towards a trade if they're not in it. But I think it's important that even if you're not taking trades, to analyze what happens if you think it's a possible trade, right? So if you think that the outcome is going to be a certain way, look at it. Take a look at it every few days and see how the outcome was compared to what you thought. And if it's right, you know that the method is working. So let's continue on with the daily and then work our way back down into what's happening down here. Not really going to talk about what could have happened or what should have been done or anything like that. So let's continue with our analysis, removing all the drawing tools, starting from scratch, and let's even go to the weekly to break it down. All right, so the first thing we notice, easy, is going to be the key level of resistance, which is now a new support. So it's a massive zone. We see that right here. Let's just make it a little bit more precise, and that's going to be our key level of demand. Obviously, it's not going to be the precise area. We're not going to execute off this zone, but it's just our understanding of the market structure that this previous resistance that has been respected very well back in 2018 is now theoretically going to be our potential new support, because obviously old resistances equals new support. We also see one little zone right here, which also has been respected on the weekly chart as well. So these are going to be the key zones for our BNB trade. I think for us, similar to XRP, we are going to be range bounding a little bit, so we probably will see some buy volume come into the market. We don't see a whole lot of sell volume on the push down compared to the buy volume on the way up. That's good to see. Although we don't see a significant amount of buy volume, so it does not indicate that we are going to see a break of the resistance. But the current supply and demand, just looking at the volume, does indicate that we will see a bit of a sideways consolidation, which is really good for our trading, because then we can just sell at the resistance and buy at demand. I think trending markets sideways are actually somewhat easy markets to trade. Yes, if it does break the resistance, you get stopped out. If it breaks the support, you get stopped out. But if you are making sure that you are entering when the price is confirming the move back down and move back up, you have a pretty good risk reward and a pretty good win-loss if you are trading them properly. So that's not a bad thing to keep an eye on, and it's not a bad thing if it actually comes out to be true. And if we start to see a trend back up, we could definitely capture from the lows here back up to around the highs, which is going to be a phenomenal trade. I can see that's around 33%. So now that we've understood the market structure, we can now identify the smaller time frame market structure, as well as the potential price action setups that we could see in this particular zone right around here. So let's just close these two and let's just draw in lines because it's a little bit easier. Now this zone is a little bit choppy because we did see this little dip right there, and we see this little pop above the little resistance right here, and obviously we see this low here. So if this wasn't here, and if this wasn't here, it would have been an even more perfect market structure to short here, but this made it a little bit noisy for us, so we couldn't actually capture that perfect little short here. But anyways, that's all right. We will continue on with the analysis, and then we do see the low being around here, which we can use as a rectangular zone. So this is going to be our support that we will use to potentially buy off of. And obviously we're not going to execute off this, it's just going to be there for this example. So we saw a nice trend up, we saw a very key break in the support zone right here, and we can even draw a more ascending support zone right around here. So we got both breaks, and we're basically right at the low here. So what are we looking for? We're looking for a continuation pattern either to the downside, or we're looking for a bounce to the upside. I personally am looking for more of a bounce to the upside than shorts to the downside, so I will be looking a little bit more bullish biased. but obviously we really want to be looking for a confirmation. I really want to see the price breaking resistances, holding supports, and making higher highs, higher lows, and giving me signs that the trend is shifting. So let's move from the daily to the 4-hour here to see the smaller time frame and the potential zones that we could be working with mid movement. So the major zones that we want to be looking at are going to be this demand zone and this supply zone. But in between them, we also have minor zones. Let's identify those. We have this minor zone right here. We can see that being used as a previous resistance and then support again. So that's going to be our minor zone. So we want to find a potential price action pattern here. We did trade this setup right here, which was actually, I totally forgot about it, but we did trade the setup, and this was the setup. Very, very easy setup. It was just a symmetrical triangle, very simple to identify, and this was a setup like this. We entered right here when the price pushed out of the resistance zone, pulled back to retest as a new support, and that's where we entered. This was our trade right here, and then we had our stop loss just below this little zone here, and then our first take profit was, I believe, around the candle here, and then the next one was going to be around this area here. I don't exactly remember, but that kind of is a trade right around there. And I do remember holding the position kind of along here, really not seeing any movement. So anyways, that's what happened last time, and I think that's what might happen this time as well. So obviously we're not going to enter. We're wanting to see a confirmation of at least a consolidation and then a visual price action pattern that shows some significant zones respected. Then we will look to enter, but until that happens, obviously we're not going to just enter randomly and thinking, all right, well, it's holding here for now, so let's just enter. We can't do that. We got to really understand the price action pattern before we even think about entering. So let's move on to the 4-hour. We're not going to see anything worth entering right now, but let's just look at what's happening, even though we got a little ways to go. So let's look at what happened last time on the 1-hour so we can really understand and break it down as to why I entered here. So the first thing we want to look at is, why did we enter? Well, we see lower highs right here and we see higher lows right here. This is creating a squeezing of the price. So we see the apex, which is all the way down here, not very descending and ascending, so the apex is probably all the way down here, but we see the price squeezing towards the apex right here. So the price is coming closer and closer together, and we need to have a decision made by the market. And whichever the price breaks is going to be the decision of the market. We're always going to look at volume as well, because that is going to give us the possible strength of the push. And we can see there's not a lot of buy volume on the way up, but what we're really looking at is not really the amount of buy volume, but just the comparison of buy volume versus sell volume. So right here, we're just looking at when the price broke and then retested as a new resistance, or a new support, sorry. So that's what we're looking for. So we see the price did gain a significant amount of buy volume on the way up, and we see less sell volume on the way down. So for me, this is more of a bullish potential outcome than a bearish potential outcome. So that's something that we want to be looking at when we're entering for longs. So because we see this whole thing here, we're not going to get any real setup for a little while here. We gotta wait at least, like, I don't know, let's say 3-4 days at a minimum, where we might see like an ascending trend line, kind of like this form. Something, I'm not exactly sure yet, but we are looking for some sort of price action pattern that's going to give us a validation that this is going to hold and a potential move up is going to happen. So until that happens, we're not going to do anything, but that's our analysis for BNB. And then for our last alt on this explore page, we have Link. And we saw a massive fall here. We shorted this, and this is why we didn't short BNB, is because we have a lot of exposure on Link as well as Ethereum and BTC, all shorts. So we didn't want to add more shorts to our exposed position, because if you just throw every dollar you have into a short and it doesn't work out, you are royally screwed, because there's going to be 5, 15, 20 stop losses all going against you. And if you obviously have 2% stop loss against your total portfolio in every single one, that's going to be very detrimental to your trading portfolio. So risk management is key. Although you might not want to actually do it all the time, it's going to effectively help you in the long run. So let's continue on with Link here. This is the 12-hour. Let's jump to the daily. Now, let's actually see the price action here. This is actually a very bullish chart. This, I think, Link I'm speaking of, is probably one of the more bullish altcoins for me personally. I trade Link very often. I love the price action. It gives me very clear signs of either buy or sell, and this is one of my favorite alts to trade. BNB is another favorite of mine, as well as XRP. I trade those mainly for my alts, as well as really small cap alts like ETC, Matic, Atom, all that stuff. But then also, I like to trade the mid-size cap alts, I guess you could say, like the three that I'm going to show you right now. So let's move to the price action of Link. So first things first, let's identify our key level of support, which is going to be this zone right around here. And let's extend that just a little bit more. So now the wick is touching. So now we have validated this zone as a support. So we don't necessarily have to come all the way back down in order to see some bullish momentum. We validated and touched this zone. So for me, it's giving me an indication that there is going to be a little bit more buy pressure coming into the market. So we can now identify our zone of sell pressure, which is going to be around right here. And now we have identified our key level of resistance and support. So I think because we saw such a sharp drop to the downside, we are going to see some momentum to the downside again. We could see a pullback. That's obviously very common, but the momentum and the market structure for me is still to the downside. We failed to hold this new support because we broke out of the resistance, and now we tried to hold as a new support. Could not happen. We destroyed the support and fell right through it. So now it's going to be used as a new resistance again. So if we do see the price come back around this zone, we are going to use this area, the 280, 290-ish dollar area here, as a new resistance. And then let's continue on with the analysis from the daily now to the 4-hour. So we can see that this was the key zone that we were looking at for our bullish push. We did take some 5% trades around here. I think this was 10% in total. Yeah, around 10 to 12%. We did capture around 5% in this move, but then it did fail to continue onwards and build that bullish push. And then we failed, started to trend back down. This wick definitely got a lot of people taken out because I'm sure a lot of people's stop losses were just below this zone here. So that was the first indication, and then we saw the continuation. This area right here would have been a potential long still because we're still above the ascending trend line. Once we saw it break and especially retest that trend line, we're definitely thinking short, and that's exactly what we did. So we were thinking long all throughout here, we're thinking, it could be a potential long, could be a potential long. When we broke the trend line, then our mindset shifted and thought, all right, now we're looking for shorts now because the trend has shifted. So we entered our first short at this candle right here, where if we zoom in, this candle right here, where we saw the long wick protrude out of the body, but closed really close to the open, giving us a lot of indication that there's going to be more sellers coming into the market. So that's our first short position. We saw a push down, awesome, good to see. And what we saw after was we needed a correction from this selling push. So what did we get? We saw a correction, letting the market breathe, kind of retesting this zone around here. So if we refine this zone to make it a little bit more precise, just collecting the wicks there and collecting the wicks here and getting this touch right here, we can see that the initial retest was retesting the ascending trend line, and the second retest was retesting the horizontal zone of resistance, which is a previous resistance right along here. So we can even bring this out further, and that is going to be our key level of resistance, and we needed to retest that before dropping further, and that's exactly what we did right here, and that was the sell signal, and then we got the massive drop. And then we can see right now we did touch that demand zone, and we are seeing some bullish momentum come into the market. We see a decent amount of buy volume come in, which is good to see. So right now we're not doing anything on Chainlink. We can go into the smaller time frames and talk about it all day long, but we aren't doing anything. We want to see some level of a price action pattern here before we actually move to the upside. So ideally, we do see a nice structure kind of forming right here where we see a previous support into a new resistance. So we see a nice little potential resistance right around here. So in my opinion, I wouldn't be surprised if we just saw continuation sideways, but if we do see another market structure form around here, so we do see initially a sideways action, and then we see a new sideways market structure around here. So if it goes sideways for a little bit, and then we see a push up, and then we see a validation of the zone, and then we see some consolidation holding the zone. That will look really good for our long-term position for the upside, but until we do, it's just, for me, a little bit too sketchy for me to enter. And another way that we could do this is if we see maybe a potential descending zone around here, maybe like something like this, and then if we delete all this section here, and then if we see a descending zone used to hold the price below a certain zone, what we could do is, if you see the price continue on here, let's just get our lock. So if you see the price continue to go here, and then we see a break in the zone, and then a retest, potentially even retesting not just this, but all the way down here, then we can look to long, because we've broken the descending zone. We've retested this zone for not only one touch, but a double confirmation of the demand zone being a key zone for buyers to enter. So then once we have clearly passed two zones, so we've clearly passed this zone, and we've rejected off the demand zone again, we can look to enter around here. So that's the only area that I'm going to look to enter. I don't want to enter around here. I don't want to enter around here. I want to really make sure that I'm going to have a validation of my momentum and of my trade before I actually enter. So that's going to be my trade right here, if it does play out to be like this. Obviously, there could be a lot of things that could happen around here, but I'm going to only enter when I see a validation of a break in trend. So there's not a whole lot to talk about other than just the bigger time frame, but we could talk about that all day long. So let's zoom back a little bit out and take a step back into the bigger scope of things. So that is the overall look for me. For Link, we can see all these zones right here. Just look how well that zone is respected. Boom, 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 boom. And then we see a lot of shorts here, 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 all the shorts attacking. And then once we saw the break in that $2 range, we saw a shift in supply and demand. A lot of the shorts got taken out, and a lot of the longs and bulls added to their position right here, creating a huge momentum shift. So not a lot to do on Link right now. We just had a massive trade here. From here all the way down to here. So we're looking really good. We're in no rush at all to enter back in. We really want to see the market start to give us a sign of a shift in trend, or some sign that we can identify that it's a clear zone where we could either buy or sell. So not doing anything right now, keeping our hands underneath our butts, trying to be patient. But yeah, that was a really, really phenomenal trade that we had here. And if you'd like to know more and you'd like to join the Performante Premium so you can trade alongside us, just let either Nathan or myself know and we'll be able to help you out. So that wraps up the end of this video. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you got something out of it. If you haven't watched the first one, check out the first one. See the outcome from the first video that we made a week ago compared to this one. It turned out very, very well. We captured some awesome profits with not only just our team, but also the students who were trading alongside with us. You can find the Discord link within our bio for our YouTube. You can also search us on Instagram with performante.ca or TikTok just with Performante, and you'll be able to find the link for our Discord through those channels as well. So if you're not already within our Discord, come check us out. We're a whole community, absolutely free to join. There's some valuable information on there as well as some educational stuff. It's just a good community all around to enter. So we hope you enjoyed the video and see you guys next week. Happy trading.